I hope that everybody had a wonderful week. In her classic book, Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust, Rebbe Tinyafa Eliach tells the story of Rebbe Yisrael Spira, the Bluzhever Rebbe, who was being imprisoned in the Yanovska concentration camp. And there he befriended a Jew who was liberal, somebody who wasn't even religious, not practicing before the war started. And they developed a deep friendship. One night, the commandant of the camp blared orders that everybody had to clear out and go to the field. And there they found a pit, and it was clear that that night's sport for the Nazis was going to be that whoever was able to jump over the pit would be allowed to live, while whoever fell into the pit would be shot by machine gun right there in the pit itself. The Jew looked at the Rebbe and said, even on the best of days, when I had 3 meals and I had clothes and I was warm, I wouldn't be able to make that jump. And the Rebbe said, listen, if Hashem willed that tonight a pit be dug and that we jump, so that's our job. Our job is to jump. What the end will be, that's up to him. So they started running together, hand in hand. They started running to the pit. They jumped, and they made it. And on the other end, the Jew looks at the Rebbe and says, Rebbe, we made it, we're alive. How'd you do it, Rebbe? So the Rebbe said, I held on to the merit of my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, a lineage that goes all the way back to the forefathers. I said, Hashem, in their merit, let us live. And sure enough, we lived. What did you do? What were you holding on to? And the Jew said, Rebbe, I was holding on to you. This legend transcends the Holocaust and the Bluzhever Rebbe and the liberal Jew. But this is a story that we've heard over and over again, that if Jews hold on to each other, that's an unbeatable force. There's no opposing power that would be able to bury that bond, that strength that's created of 2 Jews. In this week's Parshat, Shemot. So at the end of the Parsha, Moshe comes to Paro and says, let my people go. And Paro responds, let my people go? Okay, Moshe, here's my response to you. I'm no longer going to give teven, to give straw to the Jews to make bricks, and you have to keep the quota the same. The people were bewildered. How are we going to make the same number of bricks every day? We don't even have teven. That's so crazy. That's a task we can't do. And Mesilas Yesharim points out that this is a critical lesson that Paro is teaching us. Paro knew that if you leave Jews alone, if you don't keep them busy, if you give them time to think, so then eventually they're going to discover God and start talking about that we want to go and serve God. And Paro didn't want that. So Paro wanted to keep them busy and not only keep the same amount of bricks, but not even give them teven. I'm so thankful that Hashem inspired me and pushed me to be a Balkorah. You discover things about the Torah that sometimes I would have missed. For years, decades, I read that pasuk, Lo sosifon loseis la'am teven. Don't continue to give the people straw to build the bricks. And in fact, that's the way that I've heard it translated by just about everybody. But if you look very closely at the word Lo sosifon, the word is not Taf Vav Samach Yud Pei, which means to add, to continue. Don't continue to give them teven, but rather Taf Aleph Samach Yud Pei. And I wonder if Paro was hitting on a second secret about bondage for Bnei Yisrael. That not only was Paro trying to keep them busy, but Paro was saying, Lo teya safe. Don't let the Jews gather. Because if Jews could hold on to each other, if Jews could get together, so then no opposing force will be able to enslave them. Lo say sosifon, lo say safe. Don't let Jews get together in a community. Don't let Jews gather together, because that's a dangerous power. Paro knew he wanted to keep the Jews busy, and Paro knew that he wanted to keep the Jews separate. My Yedid Nefesh, Rav Jake Vidam Lansky, is fond of telling the story about the young Rupshitzer Rebbe, Reb Naftali of Rupshitz, when he was in Cheder learning, and the Melamed was teaching them how to read. So they were learning the letter Yud. Reb Naftali said, or little Naftali said, Melamed, what's this little dot letter? It doesn't seem so significant. So the Melamed said, oh, that's the Yud, right? Like Yid, that's the Yud. And when you have 2 Yuds together, it's so powerful, it spells Hashem's name. It might be small, it might seem insignificant, but put two yids together, and that's really powerful. And he discovered, the Malamed, that when Reb Naftali would be reading, so he would be reading a pasuk, and he would be adding Hashem's name every time he saw the nikudos of a shva, which were also two dots, but not next to each other, rather one on top of each other. And he would be reading words in a weird way that, he would be saying the patach right, the sound, the e sound, the a sound, all of those were right. But then there was this weird thing that when it would be a shva, so then Reb Naftali Rupshitz would read it, adding Hashem's name into that word. He said, "What are you doing?" So Naftali said, "What do you mean? I see two little yuds together. That you said that's God's name. Two yuds together, God's name. I'm reading it with Hashem." So the Malamed smiled and said, "No, Naftali, you have to know that when the two dots, one is on top of the other, that's not godly. That's silent. That's a shva. There's no sound there. The only time that there's power is when the two yids are next to each other. When you have yud yud, yid yid, two yids next to each other, that's a godly power." Here at some of the Shemayim, Hashem should help us see the beauty, the strength, the uniqueness, the holiness that are in other Jews. Should give us the privilege of always bonding with Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael, and through that, hopefully, we'll be able to see the end of this exile and have the greatest power, the godly power, come back to the world in the Beis HaMikdash. Have a good Shabbos.